G'day expats and welcome to another episode of Expat Chat, episode 46 today. And I'm joined by my mate, colleague and dusty friend back in Oz, James Ridley, who's the Managing Director for the APAC region. How's the hangover, mate?
Well, as you put it, I'm quite dusty. But mate, also, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Joined as always by the founding and managing director of Atlas Wealth, based over in the EMEA region now, currently in the sandpit, Dubai. As always, how you going, Brett?
Hey, all good, thanks. We're rapidly running through the year. I can't believe it's middle of May and, all these little topics that crop up at the same time every year, end of financial year, and all these things are happening and elections happening. And obviously there's a lot going on, especially in this region. We had the president of the UAE passed away on Friday, so there's been that change of governmentship there, and mate, it's never a dull day in this region, I can tell you now.
No, I mean, was it Sheikh Khalifa? Is that right?
Sheikh Khalifa. Right? Yep. Sheikh Khalifa. So he's passed away. So he was the son of Sheikh Zayed. So
that's right. There's a unique story behind the Burj. Is that right, Khalifa and funding?
Yeah. So it was meant to be called Burj Khalifa, and then I won't go into too much details on a recorded session, but long story short, due to the was meant to be called Burj Dubai, and then due to the generous nature of the Al Nahyan family, Ben Abu Dhabi, the name changed to Burj Khalifa. So that's where Khalifa came from. So that's why people out there, you see Burj Khalifa, not Burj Dubai. You know, it's the gracious gratitude of the Al Nahyan family, who's the ruling family of the UAE down in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, quick history lesson there, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Brett, let's dive into today's episode and today's topic. And it's a good topic just because depending on where we are in the world, we can be exposed to, I suppose, different types of, whether it's you refer to as a fee for service or commissions. And I guess it's mainly, how are you paying for the service that you're receiving from, a financial planner or a consultant or financial advisor. So a really good topic today to dive into.
Mate, it is, and it's something we get asked often, and there's been an evolution in the financial advice game for a number of years now, in going away from commissions to fee for service. And essentially the way commissions work were in the past, you'd recommend an account, a platform, a provider, and essentially the client didn't pay you for that recommendation. The provider, the company you're recommending paid you. So in a sense, you're getting free advice because someone has to pay the bill at the end of the day for the work that's been provided. With a lot of the regulatory changes in both the UK, Australia, United States, we're now going down the path of what's called fee for service, where what happens is the client is, the one who's footing the bill. And the reason for that is it's impartial. A client comes to yourself or myself or any of our team and says, I want to do this. Anything we recommend will be impartial because you're paying for us to do the research to find out the most suitable product for you in your best interest. Whereas in the past, it wasn't the case. Not with us anyway. We've never done commissions, but it may not have been the case with the industry in general. Unfortunately, obviously, in the Asian and Middle East region, commissions are still a very big thing. So we often get asked when people come to us and they say, I want to do this, this, and this. And we say, right, we're a fee-for-service firm. We have to do a statement of advice. It costs X amount of money. And they said, well, why am I paying that when this other guy down the road is not charging me anything? And the answer is simple. Someone's got to pay for lunch. With us, by the client engaging us, the client is the boss. Whereas for someone down the road, and talk about the offshore IFAs, Isle of Man bonds, all that sort of nonsense, they're the ones who are footing the bill, the platforms. So the advisor, and I put those in inverted commas still, they are recommending that platform because they get a commission from that platform. Not how suitable is it to you? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll never know. But at the end of the day, it comes back to, what we call impartiality. We want to recommend anything that's in our client's best interest. We have a legal requirement to do that. It's called the best interest duty. Clients can actually sue us if we don't recommend something in their best interest. Unfortunately, our colleagues, and once again, inverted commas, aren't held to the same levels of structure and rigor, and they can
No.
recommend what they want, and they can sort of dress it up and make it look like it's your best interest, but maybe that company's providing the biggest commission.
That's
Who
right.
knows?
And I mean, Middle East isn't the only area which a lot of the IFAs in that area, obviously they get paid through commissions. They don't get paid through sort of a fee for service sort of concept or structure. It's very common in Southeast Asia as well. In the past, I've had clients come to me, they've already signed up to these things, and the common platforms that these kind of investment bonds that pay these big fat commissions, I know Friends Providence, that's one of those platforms that a lot of IFAs use over there.
Zurich, RL360, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, it's very common. They'll whack you in there, 10-year plan or a 25-year plan. They'll label it as a savings plan, but they'll take you through some sort of PowerPoint. There's not really a formal advice or financial plan document. So you aren't, there's not really a page where it says, this is how your financial advisor is remunerated, or this is how the fees apply to your account, or this is how your advisor or your IFA is going to be paid in the background. So yeah, when there's not much transparency and they're just showing you big fat graphs and making very interesting predictions of the future and maybe even saying it guarantees you a return, there should be a few red flags there.
I think the other problem too is we are seeing changes here afoot locally where they are disclosing the advisor fee, but they're not disclosing all fees. So people present us a document that says this guy's only charging us 1% ongoing. It's like, well, how much did you pay up front? Don't know. How much, what fees are you paying to everyone? She goes, what do you mean everyone? I said, well, there's the trustee fees, the platform fee. Sometimes there's 5 or 6 mouths to feed. And when we go and add up those numbers, more than likely it comes up to 5 to 6, sometimes 7%. You're going to include your MERs on top of the advisor fee, on top of the platform fee, on top of the trustee fee. Adds up quickly. And I think it's disingenuous and a disservice to Australian expats when these people present these things. It's mutton dressed as lamb sort of thing. And to us, the biggest problem we always talk about is, if you're not paying a fee, you're the product. And when you talk to clients about that, they go, what do you mean by that? I said, well, essentially you're a commodity. There's no consideration of who you are as an investor. That is like they're going to these platforms saying, I've got Fred, I've got Joe Blogs, they've got 100,000 to invest. So you're the commodity that's being sold by the advisor to the platform.
Absolutely. And I mean the same business concept. Consider all social media platforms. We are the product for all the advertising and marketing that gets thrown in our face every day, and you get sort of caught in those big long sort of, I guess they refer to them as tunnels, where you sort of can't break them all, and you're just constantly seeing the same things or same concepts or same ads for weeks and weeks. And it just seems like constantly, Big Brother's listening through the phone as well and talk about something like, I'll say something right now like Ferrero Rocher, and I bet in 2 or 3 hours there's going to be an ad on my phone.
If you want to have a bit of fun with a friend, you can actually, talk into their, I've done that before, talk in their phone about some weird and obtuse topics. And they'll go, where did this come from?
they just keep popping up on their Instagram or Twitter feed or Facebook. But it's true. Like, obviously if you're not paying for something, generally speaking, you are the product that's being sold to other businesses for marketing purposes. But I guess in this case, when we look at, I suppose, financial services industry, a lot of sort of the offshore IFAs, what I hate about the areas in which they are paid these commissions and they don't pay the fees is their goal is just to get you signed up. Get the money in. Their 4 to 10% is paid to them. Great, you're locked in. You just got to stick to it. There might be a bit of nurturing, but not much else after that. And then they're off. They drop you like, hot tomato or hot potato and just head off to the next sort of victim, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I guess if you wanted to release those funds or pull them out, well, you're going to cop, very large 20 to 25% exit fee. And that exit fee is actually the commission that they've just had paid to them probably directly.
Clawing back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I think that's the big thing that we talk to a lot of folks, and look, financial advice has come a long way in the last 20 years. It's gone from door-to-door insurance salesman to now things are quite sophisticated. We pride ourselves on providing what we call two-dimensional advice, where you're located, where your assets are, and how those two interlink and commingle together. There's obviously a cost to that, but just to give folks out there a general understanding of what an appropriate amount is. Your friends, colleagues, family members back in Australia, on average, and correct me if I'm wrong here, James, I might get the number wrong, but on average, I think the average statement of advice fee, which is like a financial plan, is about $3,600, I think, on average. So
I would say that's probably a median. I know the Australian Financial Review, they always release good data on this annually. And I mean, key theme is that advice has been going up, but that's probably a good average for that statement of advice, the financial plan.
Yeah. So, your friends and family back in Australia who have a lot less complicated, circumstances than you are paying that. So essentially you'll probably pay a little bit more because your services are more complicated, but that just gives you an idea of the complexity of the amount of work that goes into these things. You can't charge something for nothing. And I know in our case, when we're doing statements of advice, it goes through 5 sets of hands. You're probably looking at between sort of 30 and 60 man hours in terms of constructing these documents. It's not just a type it into a computer and hit send. There's a lot of work, modeling, revising strategies, all that sort of stuff. So, just the folks out there who may have people approaching them who are saying, hey, I can do all this for nothing for you, alarm bells should be going off, because if the advice you're getting is technical, professional, prudent, there has to be a cost to it. Someone has to be paying the lunch. I did a post on LinkedIn the other day saying, who's paying for lunch? Someone has to be paying the bill.
Well, that's right. I mean, it can't just be free off the sweat of their own back. They're not running a charity or anything like that.
Or maybe it's crap. Maybe it's crap advice, so therefore there's no value ascribed to it. I don't know. But, it's something we do hear from time to time, and I thought it was worthwhile addressing on the podcast, because to me, pay peanuts, get monkeys. And that's not just us trying to justify what we charge. There is a process, a legal process that has to be followed. And there's a number of people involved in the preparation of that document for it to be compliant. It really comes back to accountability. If you're providing a statement, receiving a statement of advice, you should have the peace of mind knowing that it's gone through a strict regulatory process in order for it to be in your best interest. So there's a cost for that. If there's no accountability in that document, as I say, if it's a 5-page PowerPoint presentation with a pie chart talking about asset allocation and that's about it, you just got to wonder, how much time and effort they really care about.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember a few years ago when I had to write that report for that class action.
Yes.
I couldn't believe the amount of PowerPoints these couple sort of got put through. And it was actually a few couples. Seemed like every month getting shown a new sort of PowerPoint. Okay, now we're going to move you into these investments because they had received the upfront commissions. They were just churning them, well and truly churning them. It happened to a lot of clients, a lot of sort of people in the UK that were signed up to this one firm, unfortunately, with their overseas. That's right, their SIPs and things. But it was just remarkable that they're just getting chopped and changed, and they're just doing it without them signing off on things. And the advisors in question were just getting paid all these upfronts every month. And even the fees weren't really described on these PowerPoints they'd sent that I was reviewing part of the class action. It was just remarkable. So hopefully that it will result in a bit of a refund for them ideally, but class actions take years, unfortunately.
That was a shocking result. I remember it was at their balance was £200,000. It went to £80,000 in the space of 18 months. And the markets are going up at the same time.
Oh, it was through a period where even if you invested your money in the simplest investment,
money.
A balanced fund or something, if you had access to it, you still should have done 6% maybe over a 3 or 4 year annualized period. And unfortunately, their account balance just went backwards because they were just getting churned. And what was unique about their situation is that within their SIP, they had been put into a bond. And they couldn't pull their funds out of this bond because then also get hit with a 20% exit fee. It was just churning on churning on churning. It was ridiculous, and it was quite disgusting actually. After you really felt for everyone that had been hit by these. I'm not going to call them an advisory firm because they're not these sales consultants or these crooked sales consultants.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. And to me, whether it's UK pension transfers or whether it's even just set up investments. These people will promise you the world. They will lie to your face. And people come to us and say, they told us it was this and I could get my money at any time. Said, well, you can get it at any time, but you're going to have to pay a fee to get it out. And, what was promised on the badge, wasn't delivered in the execution. And there's also a lot of smoke and mirrors too in the statements that these people send out. You'll see a number on there which will be potentially higher than what the value of that account is, because it factors in bonuses and all sorts of old things you're meant to be entitled to if you hold it for 10 years. But then you look at the redemption value or the surrender value and it's a lot less. And the surrender value is actually the number you need to focus on, because that's actually what it's really worth.
Yeah, and that's the amount you might be able to get out, less all the exit fees and penalty fees and everything else that goes along. But it's amazing the sort of the techniques that the IFAs do use. They'll have their monthly seminars. They'll put on their sort of cheese and dips and call it a wine tasting and maybe get you in and do a bit of a PowerPoint and get you guys in for a bit of a networking event and get your contact details, and then unfortunately they'll hound you for 6 months.
Look, it's crazy with what I see on LinkedIn and the things that these people say. They say Australian expert, yet they have no qualifications at all. They've probably never been to Australia. Or they've one guy
before, actually, where they talk about Australian tax and superannuation, but the end result is they're trying to get you squashed into some sort of Singapore retirement bond or something. But they lure you in by quoting those sort of things, which is cruel, because I think a lot of Aussie expats in Singapore or Hong Kong, naturally you think, they're talking about Australian super. I haven't paid attention to super since I've been over here, maybe 5 years. This sounds like a really good opportunity to learn something, and maybe I can do something more than currently not doing anything at all. So I get it.
Yeah, look, and the other thing too, I remember having a spirited debate on a social media platform one time with a gentleman who did RG146 about 10 years ago, which for the folks out there, that's virtually like a diploma. And because he had that, he thought he was qualified enough to talk about Australian advice at the moment. So my response was, have you done your bachelor's degree in financial planning or postgrad as well? Have you sat the FASEU exam for ethics? And I just went through this list and he'd done none of them. And I said, well, right now that's a bit of paper that's worthless to you. And I didn't think he took too kindly to that situation, me calling him out, but he was making some very, very dangerous allegations online in terms of what people should do and what they should focus on. And he had it all completely backwards. And because he said he can say it because he had a diploma from 10 years ago that he sat online, never been to Australia.
Yeah, I was just going to say it probably was just the RG146. It wasn't actually the full diploma.
That's right. Yeah.
And that means he could have whipped that up in a couple of hours. Unfortunately, it wasn't actually a degree or anything like that. But I guess where our industry is going as it's progressing to a formal profession, which is there now, to be honest, with all the good new requirements, it's going to cut out a lot of that crap. It's going to get rid of a lot of those old salesy consultants that still might be based somewhere overseas and use these very old 15, 20, 30-year qualifications, which allowed them to sell insurance back in the 90s. They're all going to be gone, in a very short time, which is good to see.
Look, it's interesting too, and I think it's not just foreign expats trying to sell Australian expat stuff. There are former Australian financial advisors who were licensed in Australia, who gave up their licensing, their licenses because they didn't want to go through the new rules and regulations to qualify, but they're still running around saying they're an Australian expat specialist. But they're actually not licensed, and this is both in Asia and Middle East. They're not licensed, to provide advice. If they provide you advice on anything to do with Australia, you have no recourse against them.
I was just going to say they have no accountability. They wear no accountability, so they can say whatever they want. If it sounds good and makes sense, naturally you believe them. But at the end of the day, if they've given you wrong advice, because the advice they've given you is outdated, legislation changes every year, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to super, let's be honest, then, you could do something that could really cause a serious ill event when it's, whether it's tax-wise, penalty-wise with the ATO. And yes, that's how they'll lure you in, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because from our point of view, we put a lot of resources, time, effort, and expense into ensuring we deliver compliant advice. We have people look over the advice that we give to clients to make sure it's compliant. Like, it's not just James, Brett, Mitch, Jonathan, whoever, typing out a document. There's a process that goes through, an accountability piece that goes through. When we can go back and look at records for 5 years ago to say why we did this, this, and this, because we have a full chronology of what happened. To me, it's as I said, I think people get the impression now, they understand, just the amount of work involved behind on that. I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of, sort of wax lyrical, but to me, there's a lot of work behind it in order to ensure you're getting what you deserve. You don't want to be the product. You should be the boss. You should be the one, pulling the strings, demanding what you demand, and rightfully so.
It's a really, what you said before, it's a really good realization, sort of when you say that if you're not paying for anything, there's a very high chance that you are the product, unfortunately. It's a really good concept, but I guess, a good little checklist is, if you are signed up with these IFAs, international IFAs, well, how are they getting remunerated? What are all the total fees outside of potentially maybe an ongoing fee that they're charging? How else does their firm or the products that they are putting you in remunerate that financial IFA firm? Are there commissions involved? How do they get paid? Who's determining that commission percentage? Is that just on when you first start, or is it an ongoing percentage as well that the commissions? It's really important asking those hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
I'd say right now, if you're not sure, because you could be quite shocked at what you're paying per annum. Your fees could go, shocked. Oh, absolutely. You could think you're paying maybe 1.5% per annum. It could all of a sudden be 3 or 4% per annum. And you're going, okay, shit, there's the return that's just disappeared each year. Yeah.
And I think that's the big one is it's when you go through and have that number, that one number, the gross number of everything, some of the parts adding up to a whole number. That's the most shocking thing when we do that for clients. It's like, whoa, I didn't expect to see that number. And they wonder why their balance is going either flat or going backwards when it should be going up at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it, Brett. I think we've hit the nail on the head there. Outside of today, we've got a big week back in Australia. We're going to the election
week. It's going to the polls this weekend. So,
help me. Again. It's just so... Who do you vote for in this election, ladies and gentlemen?
None of the above. Brewster's Millions. None of the above.
They're just... anyway, I'll quit whinging. Lucky enough to be out of it, but just not too many options this year, unfortunately. They've all got pretty average policies.
Yeah, lesser of two evils, I think is what most people are going to follow their path.
I think you're right, Brett. I really do. I think talking and testing the community about it, part of you hate the least at the moment.
Exactly. So, but mate, let's leave it there. A couple of housekeeping things. We've got a new link in the show notes below, guys and girls, where you can click on and give us some feedback. Sorry, not feedback. Send us some questions in on topics that you'd like addressed, both on both the Expat Chat podcast, this one, as well as the Expat Mortgage podcast, which is one that you and Jeremy run as well too. So click on that. I'll also dig up some articles about the cost of advice just to show that we're not waxing on, with no foundation. There is a cost attributed to that. So I'll put that in there. Once again, guys, thank you so much for, listening, watching, imbibing all the information we have to say. And, mate, I think we'll leave it there for the good folks out there.
Sounds good, mate. I'll see you next time.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Brett.